sexuality is very magnetic. It's one of those things that forever has sold very easily. And so it's kind of like a cheap bait. That's why we have such a huge explosion of OnlyFans, because it's everybody got something, some sexual energy, and people actually have different flavors of what gets their attention. So it's like there's a big marketplace. Even if you look at people with OnlyFans, like they're doing something that they have to own up to, and it's going to affect their lives in positive ways, negative ways. But for me to feel upset or feel offended by something somebody else is doing is like, it doesn't seem like a productive use of my energy. But like, I think there's times where we haven't got the chance to express that part of ourselves, or we're not brave enough. And so when you see somebody doing it shamelessly, it makes you feel uncomfortable because you're like, I can never do that. And it's that part of you that is suppressed or that is ashamed and thinks like, this is bad, So it's that part of you that kind of wants to like come out, that's suppressed, that is mad that this person is letting that part of them out.
Welcome to Garnered Growth. Welcome to Garnered Growth.
What's up, fam? Welcome to another episode of Garner Growth. And today I'm going to talk to you about hypersexuality. So I've been cooking on this episode for a minute because there's a lot of just opinions on, are we being influenced by, especially like female rap artists who are a lot more explicit in their lyrics than what you think we're used to. But like really, if you look at the receipts of history, there's always been explicit music. And it just really depends on what circle you're in, like. And now it depends on what algorithm that you're in. So I want to talk more about that too, how we start to have these beliefs and develop these beliefs based on what we're consuming. Like our actual algorithm is helping to like create this world where we have certain judgments, certain perceptions of the world, and then we're projecting that onto how we're relating to people and how we relate to ourselves. So at the end of this episode too, one of the core things is like knowing how you're being influenced, and really being aware of that, being conscious of like, okay, like there's this perception of this, but then at the same time, this perception also exists. But let's get back into hypersexuality. So what is that? I actually have been called hypersexual before. And when somebody said that to me, I was just like I never thought of myself as that because I'm so comfortable talking about sex. And if y'all been watching my channel for a while, you know that to me, it is just a part of life. This is how we all got here, something we probably do or want to do pretty often or think about. And so if you just are really honest with yourself, it's not anything that's taboo. We just probably wouldn't want to talk about it at the family table. But with your friends, with your partners, like it's very, very normal. And part of my intention with incorporating sexuality into my mindfulness content is for it to just become more natural, a natural flow and addition to when you talk about your wellness, when you talk about your relationships, and when you talk about how you even express yourself. So when I think of hypersexuality, I think of hyperactivity, right? When I was in school, there was kids that were labeled as hyperactive, right? And this kid had like just not the best behaved, rowdy, had a lot of energy, rambunctious, what a lot of people would label as the bad kid in the class. He would always get in trouble, and usually it's a boy. And they would treat that boy like he's volatile, right? And like there's something like wrong with him, and that he wasn't like as safe of a person to be around. Or they might treat him as like a circus animal, and he's entertaining because he's so disruptive. And the same thing, if you like look at how they look at people that they would label hypersexual, it is an exaggeration of something that is really natural. And you might think, oh, this person is having a lot of sex, or like their mind just focuses on sex and just thinks about it all the time. And that's really what they want, or that's the base of their intention when they're trying to connect with people, or, because they have an OnlyFans, they're hypersexual. And so when we think about all these like labels that we slap on people, it really is just that it's a label. And the label is based off of your perspective of that person. And that perspective is a lot of times just like a bandwagon of your social circle, or it's a bandwagon of your social media influence that based on the content you're consuming. So I want to like kind of dig deeper into that and really have us like open up our minds as to judging people's sexuality. And then also being more authentic in how you express your sexuality. And I also think about like somebody that has BDE, right? Big eggplant energy. We know what it is. Somebody that has that energy they're not going off and saying like, I got a big, they're not like just yelling it out. They carry themselves in a way that people perceive it, right? A person that's really confident, they're not saying, I'm confident. A person that is really beautiful, they're not saying, I'm beautiful. People are seeing it. They are perceiving it without them saying anything. And that is the authenticity of their energy. That means that their energy, without words, without proclaiming, is expressing that, and it's putting out that impression, and it's influencing how people are perceiving their reality. So that to me is authentic expression. So if in your sexuality, you are authentically expressing yourself and you're doing things that you can own, that you can stand by, and you're not doing it to prove anything. You're not doing it to get validated from the outside, get validated from other people. Like, oh, you are really beautiful. So you put a lot of extra effort into getting people to see you as that versus just doing it from like this inside inspiration because you enjoy it, because you feel beautiful, because that's really what it is. It's a feeling. And there's a lot of people who are aesthetically pleasing and they got doo-doo in their souls. And you're not going to look at them and be like, oh, that's a beautiful person. Like not off bat. You're probably going to look and see maybe the energy that they're putting off. Maybe it's not welcoming. Maybe it's like, it's a nasty energy. That's going to be your first impression. And so at the end of the day, like it's the energy behind it that is the truth. You can't fake it. You can fake it like on social media because people are just seeing snapshots and basically seeing what you want them to see. Like even me, like y'all see snapshots of me on social media, but you don't really know like my life, right? You don't know what's going on in my head. You know my insecurities, my feelings, unless I've shared them with you. And that is kind of like not my responsibility as well of what you take from what you see, those snapshots, and then the story that you create. And really, we are all doing that. We're taking snapshots of what we see and we're creating this story of people and creating a judgment. And you can go to another person who's looking at the same snapshots and they got a whole different story. They have a whole different judgment. And that's because that's coming from their brain, right? That's coming from their experiences. So our own internal experiences, our own beliefs, our own feelings about ourselves are all influencing how we perceive people, how we judge. So if you are perceiving somebody as hypersexual and you are kind of maybe like have a negative feeling about that, you judging them, then maybe think about how that is reflected in you. Like what parts in you are looking at that person and saying like, okay, that is not right, or that makes me feel uncomfortable, right? Like we all have an internal mirror that's reflective off of like basically what we see. And I think there's a lot to be said as far as what people put out with content too, because when we are putting out content and there's a lot of sexual, allure in there, if that's the intention, then to me, that's an authentic expression. Like if I'm going to be making videos about cars and showing off how cool my car is, like the intention is to get you to be attracted to my cars, So I'm going to put out a lot of that. I'm going to show you my best angles. I'm going to make sure, I flood my feed with that. And so there's people out there that are seeking that attention, and sexuality is very magnetic. It's one of those things that forever has sold very easily. Sex sells, right? We all know that. And so it's kind of like a cheap bait, and that's why we have such a huge explosion of OnlyFans, because everybody got something, some sexual energy, and people actually have different flavors of what gets their attention. So it's like there's a big marketplace and there's a lot of variety to pour into that marketplace. So like, even if you look at people with OnlyFans, like they're doing something that they have to own up to, and it's going to affect their lives in positive ways, negative ways, just like your job affects your life in positive ways and negative ways. But for me to feel upset or feel offended by something somebody else is doing is like, it doesn't seem like a productive use of my energy. But like, I think as well too, there's times where we feel we haven't got the chance to express that part of ourselves, or we're not brave enough. And so when you see somebody doing it shamelessly, it makes you feel uncomfortable because you're like, I could never do that. I would never do that. And it's that part in you, that part of you that is suppressed or that is ashamed and thinks like, this is bad, So it's that part of you that kind of wants to like come out, that's suppressed, that is mad that this person is letting that part of them out. And it happens in different parts of our lives, in different areas of our lives. It could be somebody who has the type of business that you want, and you see them doing so well at it and bragging about it even, and you get annoyed. You're like you don't have to be doing all that just because you're successful. But in the back, way, way down deep, there's a part of you that wants to be that successful. And so the negative reaction you have is because you haven't gotten there, right? But let's say you get to that point where you're successful. What that person was doing, you're probably not even going to be bothered about it. You're not even going to mind. Like, it's not going to cross your mind the same. And you won't even have the space to be thinking about what somebody else is doing, because you would be full of your own success. You would be full of your own experience. And so a lot of times when we see people being hypersexual, we are judging them because there's a part of us that is suppressed and wants to come out, or there's a part of us that just wouldn't do that. And you think that you're not giving space for other people to do something that you don't agree with. And that's really like a lot of our suffering comes from that, is this inflexibility to allow space for people to be themselves and do what they want to do with that has nothing to do with you. Allow them to do that. Just like you can allow space for yourself to be fully expressive. And when you don't, when you shut down parts of you and when you suppress parts of you, it creates this inner tension. And even if you can't label it, you don't know where this unhappiness, this lack of fulfillment is coming from. It's like there's parts of you that is not being expressed. It's energy inside of you that wants to move. That's where the real lesson is. Like, you can use your reactions to people and to things that you wouldn't do that are different. Use those as learning lessons. Use them as mirrors. Like, oh, why do I feel this way about this person doing something that has nothing to do with me? Like, is there something that I would like to do that's similar, to what they're doing? Like, is there a part or a trait that I see expressed in that person that I want to emulate? And it can be a building block for you. It doesn't have to be like a conversation, where you're just kind of like, I don't know why they do that. Like, it could be actually why am I like upset at what they're doing? And it could be a growing moment for you. And also, you can sit there and talk shit because that's entertaining as well. Like, we all do it. But at the end of the day, when you're sitting with yourself, it's never worth your energy to let something dwell inside you that somebody else is doing. Now we're going to talk about the kids, because I know that influence on kids is a lot of reasons why people have this idea of hypersexuality, because our kids are exposed to it. And just like overexposure to anything without wisdom and experience, it can be debilitating, right? If I remember the DARE program, they taught us what all the drugs did. And I'm like, I didn't even think about drugs like that. Like, I knew more about how these drugs worked from the DARE program, which told me not to do the drugs, than I did if I just, didn't go through the program. But going through the DARE program and knowing about drugs and, the different things they do to people, it didn't make me want to go out and do them. Watching violent movies. I grew up watching mafia movies, y'all. We did not have no Disney in my house. We didn't have barely any cartoons. It was soap operas, mafia movies, Comic View. That was my favorite. And then Christian television. That's what I grew up watching. So a lot of violence, a lot of sex, a lot of drama, and then comedy at night, because Comic View was my favorite. But it didn't make me want to go out and be violent and shoot people. I didn't even touch my first gun until I moved to Georgia. So it was just, there is a responsibility to like take care of our own youth and to parent our kids, and to not blame media on what they're consuming and influencing them, because it's influencing all of us. But like I said, we all grew up with those influences. It doesn't automatically translate to, oh, you're going to go emulate what you saw in that movie in real life. when we do see those things happen, usually you see there is a lack of parenting. I actually just saw this video where Ozzy Osbourne was talking to, he was being interviewed, and a kid, like he was a teenager, had ended his own life. And the parents were suing Ozzy because the son was listening to Ozzy's music before that it happened. And so they're saying because he was listening to his music, this is why he did that to himself. And Ozzy had a great approach to it. Like, he was really respectful. And he was like, when something's happening with my kid and I can see that something's off because I'm paying attention to them, like, I go and talk to them. Like, I go and see what's going on with them, and I try to help them and figure out what I can do as a parent. And this is what that parent's responsibility was. So you can't blame me for what happened, because without my music, there's something deeply wrong or deeply, off going on with that child that made him get to that point. And the music was probably helping him to channel whatever that energy was. Because a lot of times when you are in pain and when you are angry, which is another form of pain, you listen to music to help you move that energy, express it, right? And I do the same thing. Like, if I'm like sad, depending on what you're sad about, I'll listen to a certain kind of music. If I'm like sad as far as like love sad, then I'll listen to a certain kind of like sad love song. If I want to get hype, I listen to hype music, whether it's like amapiano, house music, whatever it is. So we all use music to do that. But my point being, he brought it back to, don't blame the influence of my music or, the energy of my music for getting this child to this point, when, like, at the base of it, it was a lack of parenting, lack of paying attention and taking care of those basic needs. And that's how I see as well with music. Because, we do have a lot of female artists that are really explicit in their music, but also there's a lot of male artists that were doing it at a higher degree for a lot longer. And so, it might make you uncomfortable, but it also is it's meeting a need for women to express their sexuality. So, like, even abrasively, aggressively, as a reaction to, or a remedy to, a lot of sexual repression. And wherever that person is at in their healing journey or their expression, like, that's where they're at, right? If you don't like it, don't listen to it. But also, don't be blaming, like, these misbehaviors or, when people get into trouble just on the music. Yes, influence, but there's, like, you spend a lot more time at home. You spend a lot more time in the circle that you're in socially than just listening to music. That's not always just the case, right? If you have a really good circle around you of people, you have support, you have love around you, what you listen to is like, the influence is like, it's not going to make you make life decisions. And we all know that. Like, to me, that's just common sense. So I think artists have the freedom to say what they want to say in their music. And obviously, some people like it, right? Because they're listening to it. If you don't like it, don't listen to it. I think it's the same thing as people leaving comments about things that they don't agree with, which is fine. It's your freedom to express. But at the same time, too, like, you can't expect your opinion to make make people change or, like, not do what you don't agree with. That's ridiculous, y'all. We got to be a lot more flexible in allowing life to just be. And so also, too, with hypersexuality, sexuality is a spectrum. It changes throughout your life. It depends on who you're with, how you feel, your stress level. If you're in a more creative space, if you're in a more logical work-related space, it fluctuates. You could be years in a relationship that is not stimulating your sexuality, maybe like suppressing it. You can be years in a relationship that is stimulating it, and then you take a moment of where it just goes into like a dip, or it goes into a lull. And to me, that's just like life breathing, right? Life is going to breathe. It's going to go in. It's going to go out. Everything does that. And what you might think right now is a hypersexual behavior, in a year, years from now, months from now, it could be so different for you, where you're like, my libido is right here. And that's not even a bad thing. I think it becomes something that's, if it's not matched in relationship, if there's like a need that's not being met, that's going to cause an issue, right? But it's also really natural, because we are, it's just an energy, and energy fluctuates in waves, and everything fluctuates in waves. So for it to come and go is really natural. And then just like the spectrum of what you think is even sexual. Like some people think that is really freaky to do oral. Some people think that that's like very elementary. There's different levels of vanilla. There's different perceptions of what vanilla is versus what is kinky, right? It just depends on who you're talking to. So even just using the term hypersexual it becomes dust because like who you're talking to, what situation are they in? Like it's just so vague. Yeah. And it leads me to the point where just being yourself, like wherever you are in your sexual expression, let it be honest. Like, let it be something that you do for you and that is true to you and that you're not doing to prove anything or to do it for somebody else. And as long as you own it and it's for you and it's coming from your honest expression, it feels good. And that's really how you know. As long as it feels good to you, it feels natural. If you are doing like OnlyFans and you're doing sex work, if it feels natural to you and not natural, because sometimes like, if it feels good, that's what I mean. If it feels good to you and it feels like something you want to do, if you're a dancer and it feels good to you, then there's nothing wrong with that. But there might come to a point in that place in your life where you're like, I don't want to do this no more, or this doesn't feel good anymore, or it doesn't feel good this way. I want to do it this way. Then you have that power to adjust. You have that power to stop. You have that power to pivot. And that is really where true sexual expression comes in, because then you're just doing things that are true to you and you're not being self-violating where you're doing things just for money, where at the end of the day you feel gross in your body, or at the end of the day you feel like you didn't advocate for what you really wanted. And this happens in relationships too, where you might be doing something just because your partner wants to do it, but you really don't want to do it. And not to say that that's, a red flag, but it could be find out why you don't want to do it. Where is the boundary being crossed? Where is the self-violation happening? And it could just be a consent thing. It could be a lack of choice. It could be that it's not enough and you actually want more. So following that internal feeling, that feeling of a yes or that feeling of a no, like following that and honoring it and really respecting it in everything that you do, not just even sexual stuff, and everything that you do, but especially in sexual stuff, because it is being that our sexual energy is the base and our reproductive center is the base of how we all get here. It's kind of like the womb that we all come through life, the portal of life. That's what I was trying to think of. It also harbors our sense of safety and creativity. And just when that is violated, when that's off, when that's not being expressed, or when that's being taken advantage of, it throws everything off. And so it's really important for you to honor and respect your body and your spirit in that way. And the way that you honor and respect your body and your spirit is up to you. And you are going to be the one that's going to experience the benefits of it and the cons of it, the consequences, if there are any, of whatever choices you make. And even like as a parent, like you're raising a teenager, that's the conversation that I would want to have with my teenager, is not don't do this, don't do that, like the way that I was raised to do it, where there's a lot of fear put around it and just kind of like fear. I would want them to really own and understand that they have to own their decisions, the consequences that come with their decisions, and understanding what those consequences are, and really like imbibing them with a sense of responsibility and self-advocacy versus fear and not understanding why, but just like being scared. Like that to me is not really, it's not really empowering. And then it still makes you curious. Like it still makes you want to like mess around and find out. But if the burden of responsibility is fully put on me, where I know the consequences of my actions and I know that I fully have to take them on, then that empowers me to now self-parent a lot better and make choices based off of that. Because also like I feel respected because I have responsibility over myself. I'm not just kind of like a child being scared out of doing something that like in the back of me, my primal instincts makes me really want to do. So that's how I would do things based off my experience, and also based off of my experience of being a teenager and trying to, sneak around and do stuff. So, yeah, I think that's like the fullness of that conversation. And just like a journal prompt too. This is something I want you guys to try. If you do not journal, it's something you can sit and just contemplate when you have a moment of silence. The mornings are really good, and so are laying in bed before you go to bed. Those are also really good. Like, I like to put my phone away right before I fall asleep, and then just choose something that I actually want to fill my mind with. That could be manifestation, something I want to manifest. It could be a trait that I want to embody. So let's say if I wanted to be a lot more confident, I would visualize myself being really confident, doing specific things that I want to do, through this confidence, and how I'll feel. Like, how does it feel to be confident? How does it feel to be, like, you want to be a speaker, like visualizing yourself on stage and all the emotions that come with that, the pride, I really just like, those words just slid out of me like magic. The crowd received it. I felt like I was in my purpose, and I felt validated in myself and proud of myself. Those are the things that I like to spend my last minutes of sleep with. But here's a thought before you go to bed too. Like, really look at your look at your sexual expression, and what would you grade it as far as do you feel like you are on this end of the spectrum where you feel like don't really feel like I express myself sexually or even have a sexual energy, which it doesn't translate to sex. Sexual energy is not just sex, right? It's creative energy. So think of it that way. It's this confident, creative flow of producing, and you could produce anything from this, right? It's really like our godlike creative power that we are given. So are you here where you're like, there's some in me that's not coming out. I feel a little suppressed. I feel blocked in certain ways. Are you over here where it's like, yes, like I am sexy, and it's coming through in my confidence, how I carry my body, how I function in my relationships, how I express my creativity, how my words flow, how I walk. So that's over here. And so where are you on this spectrum? And where do you want to be? Like, what's one thing that one area you want to focus on to feel more sexually liberated in your expression? It could concern your relationships. It could concern your creative projects. It could concern how you feel in your body, right? So you might just want to start working out. It could be something that simple. And just think of that one thing and see yourself doing it, and see yourself doing it full out, right? When you visualize, there are no limits. So whatever you're visualizing, full out, maximum energy, like at your best. That's what you want to focus your mind on, because that's going to help to bring it out in you, and you start to see it actually show in little ways in your life. And your perception will change, where you'll start to see more opportunities for it to come out, and you'll start to just blossom, open up a lot more. And it all kind of just works together, in tandem. But once you put that will out there, you start to see yourself doing it. That's already the seed of creativity, and it'll start to flow. And that creativity is also your sexual energy, right? So you guys give that a try. Again, morning or night, whenever's your best time where you just can lay and think. And let me know how you feel about it in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video, share it. I think it's a really good thing to share things that you feel added value to, and just pass it along. Because if you felt it, somebody else is going to feel it. And I felt it, so that's why I'm saying it, right? So it's like this chain link of just keep pass it along. So help me do that. Keep passing it along. Follow me on Instagram, Green Body. The E's are 3s. So GR33N Body. And I'll see y'all on the next episode. Leave with love.
Like, subscribe, share the growth.
If you are not ready for the day, it cannot always be night.